Bienvenidos viajeros a su casa, el Pasaporte Sinfónico, el podcast donde la música viaja. El día de hoy le estaremos presentando a el viajero, documentalista, director de cine, el californiano de origen japonés, Noa, o como mejor se le conoce, Whereisnoa. Noa tiene 4 meses viajando por toda Venezuela y vamos a compartir con él algunas de sus experiencias. Antes de darle el pase a Noa, tenemos también en la otra línea o en el otro lado a Ernesto. Ernesto, bienvenido también.
Hola, Pasaporte Sinfónico. Hola, Juan. ¿Cómo están todos ustedes? Bueno, por aquí con muchas expectativas de hablar con Noa y bueno, listo para que compartamos toda la experiencia que él ha tenido acá en Venezuela. Así que adelante, Juan.
Perfecto. Noa, thank you very much for accepting the invitation. We are thrilled to listen and share with you, with our listeners and viajeros sinfónicos, not only in Venezuela, but everywhere they can listen to the podcast, your experience in Venezuela. Bienvenido a tu casa.
Gracias, gracias. Nice to have you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Very welcome. Noa, before we start, we would like to ask you, why Venezuela?
I mean, I think the question is why not? You know,
Yeah.
like to give you some context, I've been traveling alone for over a year now. I started in Belize and I made my way down from Central America all the way to South America. And my plan was to go from, once I reached South America, to go from Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela, and then make my way to Brazil for the World Cup. I wanted to watch the World Cup while in Brazil. That was my original plan. So Venezuela was on the way to Brazil, and I got stuck here. I just didn't want to leave, and I'm still here, and I didn't make it to Brazil.
Amazing, amazing. And tell us, what were you expecting versus the reality? What you found?
I mean, to be completely honest, people told me not to visit. Like, Venezuela was the one country besides the 3 other countries you have here in South America, which are Suriname, French Guiana, and Guyana. Besides those 3, plus Venezuela, people just don't go there. Like, none of my friends go there. None of the people on the backpacking trail decided that they wanted to go there. So there's a very little information on how I could go to Venezuela. And honestly, the only information that I did get was negative. It was, you know, the economic condition is not good. You're going to get kidnapped. You're going to get robbed. Like, to be honest, my expectation, I was mentally prepared to get robbed, all of my equipment. But I was prepared for that. I'm not going to lie. I was ready for it. I was like, if that's what it takes, I will still want to visit because I still want to see it with my own eyes.
And Noa, tell us, how was your experience with your first days? What were the encounters or the feedback you got while you were getting familiar with the country?
Well, as I said, when I came here, my expectation was that everything was going to be difficult. I was going to be a target. And honestly, the first day kind of reinforced that idea because as soon as I landed in Caracas, I was going through immigration. And the first thing that the officer asked me was, once he looked at my passport, he looked and he recognized that I was Japanese. He was like, "What are you doing here? Why Venezuela?" And then he was like kind of jokingly looking at me and he was like, "Where's my gift?" You know? And I was prepared for that because people had told me that they have heard stories of people arriving in Caracas and the customs officers going through all your stuff and just taking whatever they want. Like, that was what I was told. So I was like, oh, this is as I thought it was going to be. That was my very first reaction. But, you know, nothing actually happened. He was just kind of like joking around. But it was still like, as someone that was expecting it, to hear it was reinforcing. And even when I was in the taxi ride from the airport to my friend's house, the taxi driver gave me some context as to what life in Caracas looks like. And a lot of what he told me was what reinforced the idea that the economic condition here is difficult and that it's not exactly a thriving economy, to say the least. So I would say that the first few days was like, okay, this is not like everything is, I need to be careful. I was very cautious the first couple of days, even going outside. Like my friends don't necessarily walk anywhere. They drive in cars to from place to place, even if it's a close distance. And when I told them that I wanted to go for a jog, they were like, okay, if you want to go for a jog, you can go in this direction around these places and then come back here, but don't go down this area or that area. So there was definitely a lot of, I was very cautious and aware of my surroundings, to say the least.
And tell us, which parts of Venezuela have you been so far?
Ooh, let's see. So I started in Caracas. I was there for around 2 weeks. And then I made my way to Valencia, Barquisimeto, Mérida. Then I came back to Valencia. I went to Maracay, or Aragua, I guess, because I was in Cuyagua, La Ciénaga. I made my way down to Ciudad Bolívar to go to Roraima. And where else? I'm trying to think. I think those are the main places that I've been to. I feel like I'm forgetting a few, but that was the general route that I took.
And which place did you like the most and why?
Depends on what are we comparing here. Are we comparing people? Are we comparing nature? Are we comparing, what is it? What would you, in terms of, okay, I'll put it this way. In terms of nature, the most beautiful place that I was in was La Ciénaga. Beautiful place, absolutely stunning, just because of how few people were there and how preserved the place is. It was another world over there. And obviously Roraima, climbing the tepuis was a magical experience. I know it's not something that probably 98% of the population here can't do. So I was very aware of that when I was going up. But it was still a very powerful experience to be able to climb one of the most ancient places, on Earth.
Yeah.
In terms of people, it's a difficult question. Like I have so many places. I feel I have many families in Venezuela now. Depending on what city I'm in, like I have a family. For example, I would say Valencia was the first place that I had a big family, which were all people I didn't know ahead of time. It was just receiving messages on Instagram, turning into going to baseball games with them, or like getting invited to baseball games through Instagram by random people, and me hanging out with them, and them introducing me into their friend group, and that just kind of ballooned into having a mini family in Valencia. So Valencia was I stayed there for almost a month, I think, in total, just because of how welcoming the people were there. And I spent Navidad over there, so I made my first ayacas over there. I went to my first Magallanes Leones Clásico over there. It was definitely that was the first place where I saw what quote unquote normal life, or a side of what normal life looks like in Venezuela, because it was very different than what I was expecting to see. So yeah, I would say Valencia has a very special place for me, just because of the very kind people over there.
I remember a few years ago, my brother was studying in Vancouver, in British Columbia, and he met a Japanese girl, and he invited her to go to Venezuela. And we were traveling all over Venezuela. And I remember one day, Michael is her name, and she stared at me and she says, Juan, I never seen in my life landscapes with so living colors. Like, you know, there is no pixels that can describe the colors that there are there here. And she also stared at me, you know, saying, you really don't know what you have here. You really don't appreciate what you have here. This is unique, a unique country. And unfortunately, I think she's right, because we take for granted that everything we have in Venezuela, and we don't appreciate it as much. Is that your same feedback?
It's definitely something I've heard many times, especially those are comments that I receive when I post something from La Ciénaga, for example, or Moroccoy, or Cuyagua. When I go to these places, a lot of the messages I get are from people who had to leave Venezuela, who miss home, who are now realizing how much they took for granted the environment that they were living in at the time, at least from a nature standpoint. Because I think a lot of them want to come back but can't for various reasons. And those are the messages that I receive a lot. So it's definitely something I feel, but it's not really from the people that are living here. The people that are living here that I'm hanging out with, like, we are thoroughly enjoying it when we're there. It's not like, you know, we're like, oh, Isla Larga, like just another beautiful island. Like, no, we're thoroughly enjoying being there. But I think the feedback I get is mostly from people that had to leave but miss home.
And you mentioned that tomorrow you will go to Zulia to record the El Catatumbo. Is that right, Noa?
Yes, that is the plan. That is the plan. It was something that it was one of the few things I knew about Venezuela before I came here. Actually, no, that's a lie. I did not know Catatumbo before I came here. The only thing I knew about Venezuela before I came here was Salto Angel, which I have not seen. But Catatumbo was something that I heard about when I was in Valencia, and it's obviously a very unique phenomenon that I really wanted to go see with my own eyes. It's just, we have to figure out, you know, at the end of the day, it's nature. So I don't know if I will be able to see it, but my plan is to go see Catatumbo, go see the Relámpagos, I go see the lightning in Catatumbo. That's kind of the plan for now. I actually am in Mérida right now. I was actually in Barinas yesterday. I left because I had given up on it a little bit because it was just too expensive. But I was able to work out something with someone over there. And I was like, no, I need to come back. Like, I need to go. I can't leave without at least trying. It was really the fact that I wasn't trying that was bothering me. So I basically did a day trip to Barinas. Now I'm back in Merida again. So I saw the Paramo twice in the past 2 days. So I'm very lucky.
Yeah.
And after that, what do you plan? Do you want to make a documentary about your travels? What would you like to do with all the information that you're having? You know, for future generations or people who are interested in know Venezuela or travel to Venezuela. What would you suggest or recommend to them?
So I've been traveling for the past year and a half or 14 months with a 360 camera, which is a camera that captures all angles. And the purpose of me using a 360 camera is to create a virtual reality experience of what it's like to go solo backpacking or traveling alone. That was the original idea. And over the course of the year, it's merged and changed a little bit into documenting what life really looks like in the countries that I visit. And my plan for Venezuela is the same. I've been documenting a lot of the things that I've seen here with the 360 camera. So people can ideally put a virtual reality headset on, like a VR headset, and really immerse themselves in the environment that I was able to see with my own eyes. So you can experience what it truly is like to be in Venezuela. Because as I said, a lot of people told me not to visit Venezuela, but most of the people giving me advice had never actually visited themselves. They were all relaying information that they had heard, or a story they had heard, or whatever the information they were getting was not their own personal experience of them in Venezuela. So by using 360 and virtual reality experiences, my goal is to create a virtual reality series of what life in Venezuela looks like, at least from my personal experience. I'm not trying to summarize what all of Venezuela looks like in my series. It's not possible. I've only been here for 4 months, but what I can do is show what I was able to see, because I've tried my best to see as many different parts of the country, many different socioeconomic classes, many different regions that have different cultures and climates, and just trying to get like at least scratch the surface of what Venezuela looks like, so people can experience for themselves and make their own judgment and create their own opinions on a place. Because I don't think it's fair for people to make a assumption about a country without physically being there themselves. So this is my attempt to bridging that gap a little bit.
And Noah, do you know that one of the parts of in our podcast is to ask for a local to be our guide in the country? We realize that you know Venezuela probably even better than myself. So I will ask you to be like our tourist guide for 24 hours. So the first, let's say you have some friends who are coming to visit Venezuela and you receive them. And you say, okay, first of all, let's go for a breakfast. Where would you take us for breakfast? It doesn't matter which region, and which dish would you present them?
I would take them to Morocco, specifically to Caracas, to go eat some empanadas de camarón.
Oh, great choice. Great choice.
That's what I would do for breakfast. Or I would go for an arepa con cazón in Cuyagua.
Great choice as well.
Both great choices.
And what was the follow-up? Like, do I get to choose where, like, does it have to be in a similar area, or like, what else do you want? Do you want me to describe 24 hours that are not realistic because of location? Like, how would you describe? What do you want me to do?
Exactly. Let's say the region beside the one that you already described. What other region you say, listen, if we're in Venezuela, we have to go here?
Okay. So after we eat an empanada con camarones or shrimp in Tucacas, I would go to La Ciénaga, hang out there for the day, relax in peace, in the nice piscina. Basically, it's a pool. And then at night, I would go to a Magallanes Leones game in Valencia. You know,
Excellent.
I'm sure I'm going to piss off a lot of people, but the first game that I went to go see in Venezuela was in Valencia, so I'm a proud Magallanero now. So
there you go.
sure
There you go.
You are in the wrong side.
But yeah, that was like, yeah, I would take them to an El Clasico for sure. And at night, I would introduce them to my friend Misael in Petare, and we would go to a salsa party at the top of Petare and Bombilla until the morning.
Excellent. So you're almost like a local then.
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm the local, but I know a lot of locals. I think I would put it that way. Like, I think the best way to travel is when you get to know somebody that is from that area, because they will be able to get you into places that otherwise you wouldn't be able to go. Petare being an example. Like, I would feel more comfortable, and the experience is always going to be better when someone from there is showing you around, because you kind of get rid of that barrier of who is that guy from like a negative perspective, because you don't want, you have to understand that there's a lot of outsiders are not necessarily, always a good thing, especially when you don't know what their intentions are. But when you're with somebody that is local, then they're curious, but in a positive way. Like, who is, like, for example, my friend Misael, when he invited me, people were like, who is this guy with a huge camera walking around Petate? You know, and that's how I made all of my friends there, and that's how I got to know the people, and that's how I got invited back to go, you know, dance salsa and even attempt a little bit of a tambor over there in Petate, in Bombilla, in the middle of the night. So that was quite an experience that I would definitely recommend to anybody, but just go with people that know the area.
Looks like the people wants to show to the world the way that the Venezuelan people live.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I've been traveling for, as I said, 14 months now, and every country has very, very nice and welcoming people. But I would say Venezuela, like Venezuelans, are exceptionally welcoming, very warm people that just invite me into their house, invite me to stay at their house, invite me to dinner, invite me to activities, invite me into their friend groups. It's definitely a very warm and welcoming place, which has allowed me to see not just the surface, but dig a little bit deeper into what life actually looks like, not just go to Los Roques, go to Canaima, and go to, you know, the places that are known for, you know, tourists. To be honest, I haven't been to Los Roques, I haven't been to Salto Ángel, at least not yet. I'm working on something right now, but we'll find out. But yeah, that's not my goal. My goal isn't to go see the most beautiful places, because usually the most beautiful places, quote unquote, are places that are touristy. But that doesn't represent what a country really looks like. If you want to learn what a country really looks like, you need to hang out with people that actually live there and see what their day-to-day life looks like. And one of the projects that I work on in while I'm in Venezuela and in general during my travels has been documenting someone's day in virtual reality. So you can basically, so I follow somebody around for 24 hours or whatever the time frame is. And so you can relive what that person's day actually looks like, but in virtual reality. So that's something that I'm trying to do right now.
Excellent. Amazing. And actually, that's like the leitmotif we promote in the podcast, El Pasaporte Sinfónico, is to show, you know, when we go to a places, to know as a traveler, you know, escaping from all these massive tourist destinations or stay in a, you know, a 5-star hotel chain where you really don't see or you don't observe the essence of the country, or even to have the opportunity to join the people and really know the country as it is. That's exactly what we want to express in the podcast.
No, I completely agree. I completely agree. I think that's one of the most important things about travel, and one of the most rewarding things about traveling is when you actually get to see what life looks like. Because it's easy to go see the most beautiful beach, hang out with other tourists there, see the people that serve, quote unquote, you know, these tourists. But that's not authentic necessarily. It can be, but not. For me, that's not where my fulfillment really comes from. It comes from being able to hang outside in the street on a plastic chair that's probably broken, and drinking, you know, some polar or some sulia all night. You know, like that's where you get to know people. That's where you talk about life, what their values are, what they're trying to achieve, what their life actually looks like, and you get to share what your life looks like. Where have you been? Where have you traveled to? What your own goals are, and that's the most fulfilling part about travel for me. And that's also how you make the most a rich relationship and rich friendships come from. You know, it could be a night just hanging out in the middle of the street and drinking some beers, and you might have, you know, a highlight that you will never forget.
I will ask you about the music, about your Venezuelan trip soundtrack. Do you like the Venezuelan music?
I mean, yes, I love the energy from Gaita, for sure.
Yeah.
During Navidad, that's what I was listening to most of the time when I'm making ayacas at, you know, my friend's house. You know, all I heard was Gaita for, you know, the whole night. So.
And can you dance the Gaita?
No, hold on.
And normally, Noa, when you're traveling, let's say you're traveling in a bus, do you listen your own music, or you just let it flow with interacting with the people, or you just enjoy the landscape?
All three. I mean, it really depends. Most of the time, I'm taking a bus, for at least 5 hours, sometimes 13. So I do all three. I'm not going to talk to somebody for 13 hours. I'm not going to stare out the window for 13. I'm not going to, but it's definitely a balance between the three. I definitely usually end up talking to the person next to me. Today, when I was coming from Barinas to Merida, for example, I was talking to a guy, that was standing next to me. Talked to the guy that gave me a coffee, during one of our breaks. But I was also listening to a podcast, listening to music, and filming. A lot of the times I'm also filming on the bus because I'll usually find a seat that has a window, so I can open the window and I can stick out my 360 camera from out the window of the bus, so I can capture the landscape. Today, I was in the Paramo. It was beautiful over there. So every 15 minutes, I kind of take out my camera and stick it out, and take my 360 camera and stick it out the window, just so I can capture that in virtual reality as well. So you can feel like you're flying next to the bus, like you're traveling next to the bus and you get to see whatever you want to look at, So I definitely do all three.
And for how long do you want to keep staying in Venezuela? You want to nationalize Venezuela and stay there? What would be your plan, or you want to continue traveling, or you think you found what you were looking for?
That's the question. That's the question. The reality is that I need to go back because now I have a year's worth of virtual reality experiences that I need to create. And the reality is that there's always going to be more to film. Like, no matter where you are when you're traveling, there's always something else that you want to go see. And when you're filming, you can't be editing, or at least in my case, it takes I need my full focus to be on one thing. So I know I need to stop traveling, and I feel the end coming very soon because now I'm switching my mindset and my mode into, let me go into a cave, plug my computer in, go through all of my experiences that I've captured in VR and actually create these virtual reality experiences. So the end is coming soon, ahorita, as they say here in Venezuela, which means literally nothing. It could be 2 hours, it could be 2 weeks, it could be 2 years. Anything is ahorita nowadays.
Excellent. And Noa, well, we know that you have a tight agenda, and again, we really want to thank you for accepting the invitation. But beside that, we really want to thank you for showing the real Venezuela, despite all the struggles that we have, political, economical, and social situation. You are showing to the world the best of us, and that's something that is priceless. We as a Venezuelan, we really want to thank you. And if you want to stay in Venezuela, you know that Venezuela really embrace you as a son. You can stay there as long as you want, my friend. This is your house.
Thank you. It's definitely felt that way. Just how welcoming the people have been. I really feel like I have many families here. So it's definitely a country that has a special place in my heart. And yeah, it's been hard to leave. I've canceled my flight twice already, just to give you some context.
And Noa, what would be your again? I will repeat this question again. What would be your suggestion, advice to someone who is listen to this podcast and say, listen, this is something that I was not expecting from Venezuela, but I would like to go, but still I'm kind of unsure if going or not. What would be your advice? What would you tell them?
I would say every country has its beautiful parts. Every country has its dangerous parts. Venezuela is just like any other country in the sense that it has both the good and the bad. You just need to be careful, just like you would be in any other country, and focus on, and don't always just listen. Don't let what you hear become what you think, because the reality is always more complicated, and you need to actually experience things yourself to be able to form your own opinions. And this goes for not just visiting Venezuela, but in general. That's what I try to live by. I think it's very important that we all have critical thinking. You know, it's easy nowadays to listen and just kind of let that, like, repeat a headline that you heard somewhere else and as if it's fact, when you yourself don't really know where that information came from or who said it and for what reason. And I would say Venezuela, you need to go see it for yourself. Just do it just like you would do in any other country. Just be safe, be aware. And I think everyone's going to be pleasantly surprised at how Venezuela is, I wouldn't even say a hidden gem, but it's a gem that's been forgotten that I think needs to be rediscovered.
Noa, we really appreciate it for accepting the invitation. You know, this is your house. Anything that you want to share with us, any other experience, you know where we are, and we are, you know, ready here to be also like a voice in case you want to share other experience, not only in Venezuela, but with your documentaries and anything, you know, that we're here, you know, to spread the voice.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you for the warm words. And I definitely will keep that in mind. I love what you guys stand by, especially about really being able to experience a country, not just its touristy places. I think that's very important. And I want more people to go traveling alone, which is an ironic thing to say, because when you travel alone, you're almost never alone, because it's easier to meet new people. You're forced to meet new people. And that's where the beautiful experience is happening. When you talk to the person on the corner, when you talk to the person in the restaurants, when you talk to the people in your hostel, that's where beautiful experiences and memories are created. And that's how you actually get to know a place. So yeah, just thank you to both of you for inviting me to have this conversation, and thank you to, you know, really all of Venezuela for inviting me and letting me stay here for so long and being so kind and generous and welcoming.
It is a pleasure, Noa.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to you.
Keep talking, and viajeros sinfónicos. Esta fue la entrevista con Whereisnoa. Síganlo en sus redes sociales, en el Instagram, Whereisnoa, y se lo deletreamos: W de whisky, H de hotel, E de eco, Romeo eco, India Sierra, Noviembre Oscar Alfa. Whereisnoa. Síganlo en sus redes sociales.